It's absurdly large, heavy, and expensive to build. So, you have to ask, what is the point of the Tiger II? Especially when you've already got this. With its combination of thick armor and massive firepower, the Tiger I was already the toughest, biggest, meanest beast around. It was the stuff of nightmares for Allied tank crews. But at some point, the Germans decided they wanted to build an even bigger, tougher, meaner tank. The Tiger II. And they were willing to halt production of the Tiger I just to get them made. So, how are the Tiger I and Tiger II related? What were the Germans hoping to achieve by developing the Tiger II? And to what extent did they actually succeed? The main commonality between the Tiger I and Tiger II is that they were both designed and designated as Durchbruchswagen, heavy breakthrough vehicles. The idea goes all the way back to 1935 and the concept of a well-armed, well-armored heavy tank able to break up enemy armored assaults and punch holes in enemy defenses. These gaps could then be exploited by lighter, faster vehicles like the Panzer III and Panzer IV. They didn't have these heavy tanks in 1940 when they would have been able to do the exact job they were designed for. But the requirement became a lot more urgent in 1941 during the invasion of the Soviet Union, when German tanks suddenly encountered the heavily sloped T-34 and the formidable KV-1. With the German army on the offensive, the Tiger needed to be introduced quickly. It was to act as a mobile platform for the 88mm tank gun based on the infamous 8.8 flak, which had already proven itself in an anti-tank role in the early part of the war. Its tank equivalent, the KWK-36, had the hitting power to deal with Soviet armor, a power entirely absent in the 37 and 50mm guns of early war German tanks. By running elements of different projects together, a hull and mechanicals from Henschel, and a turret originally intended for a Porsche-designed hull, the Tiger I was born. When it appeared on the battlefield in August 1942 near Leningrad on the Eastern Front, it was an absolute game-changer. The combination of thick armor and a massively powerful gun outmatched any Allied tank in existence. We're all aware of the Tiger I's legendary status. So why, just as it was being established, would you start thinking about replacing it? When you already have a potentially world-class heavy tank, why start designing another, especially in the middle of a war, with all the additional costs, industrial complications, and disruption that entails? Well, it seems there were two main reasons. Firstly, the Tiger I wasn't capable of much upgrading. It couldn't really be up-gunned. The turret was simply too small to take the new, more powerful 8.8cm KWK-43 gun. And the squared-off hull couldn't realistically be up-armored without adding an excess of weight that would put massive strain on the drivetrain. Impressive as it was, the design had hit a dead end. Secondly, while it would be wrong to describe the Tiger I strictly as a stopgap, it was hurried into production with the aim of supporting the invasion of the Soviet Union. The Germans were looking for something to fulfill the breakthrough role into the medium term, probably for the next 5 to 7 years. Now, that sounds logical, but it would sound even more logical if the war was actually going their way. The replacement for Tiger I was ordered in early 1943, right at the time the tide of the war was beginning to turn against the Germans. It was designed to be incredibly well protected, with even thicker armor that would be sloped to increase its line-of-sight thickness, much like the T-34 and the Panther before it. It would also mount the new, devastatingly powerful 8.8cm KWK-43 L/71 gun, giving it far more destructive power. The initial turret for the Tiger II, much like that of the Tiger I, was originally designed for another unsuccessful tank design by Ferdinand Porsche. It's a good thing he was better at making cars. Since 48 of these turrets had already been built, rather than waste them, it was wartime after all, they were fitted to the first 48 Henschel hulls. This explains why these early models are sometimes known as the Porsche Tiger, despite the fact that Porsche had absolutely nothing to do with the hull itself. The curved front of this early turret was intended to reduce the area that could be hit by an incoming round. But instead, it created a notorious shot trap that would deflect rounds down into the relatively weak turret ring with potentially catastrophic results. It was also incredibly hard to manufacture, so the rest of the tanks would be fitted with the production model Henschel turret, which featured a flat-fronted design that eliminated the shot trap entirely. Production of the Tiger I was phased out as the Tiger II came on stream, and the new beast first saw combat in Normandy in June 1944. But how much of an improvement was the Tiger II? How much better was the Tiger II than the Tiger I? And how did both fare against the Allied tanks they faced? Better is obviously a subjective word, but there are a substantial number of physical upgrades we have to take into account. The Tiger I's KWK-36 gun, firing an APCR round, could punch through 138 millimeters of 30-degree sloped armor at 1,000 meters. The Tiger II's KWK-43 gun could punch through 165 millimeters of sloped armor at the exact same distance. That is a substantial upgrade. To put it in perspective, a Tiger I could penetrate the frontal armor of a Sherman at 1,800 meters. A Tiger II could do the exact same thing at 3,000 meters. Both outmatched the standard 75mm armed Shermans and T-34/76s, which were essentially unable to penetrate either Tiger's frontal armor at combat ranges. The Tiger I had exceptional armor protection for its time, 100mm on the glacis, up to 140mm on the mantlet. But it had no real slope. The boxy hull meant the frontal plate had a minimal slope of just 10 degrees. With the emergence of the British Sherman Firefly and the Soviet T-34/85 in 1944, the Tiger I was no longer invulnerable. The Tiger II ensured the German army could still field a tank to be feared. Now equipped with a hull shape similar to the Panther, its frontal plate was 150 millimeters thick and sloped at 50 degrees. That is a massive increase in effective armor thickness, making a ricochet off the front hull far more likely. The front plate of the production turret was 180 millimeters thick. In practical terms, this meant almost no Allied tank was capable of penetrating the frontal armor of a Tiger II. Both generations of the Tiger utilized torsion bar suspension, but the road wheel arrangement fundamentally changed. The Tiger I used a complex, interleaved system of rubber-tired wheels. It gave a very smooth ride, but it was a nightmare to repair. If a mine struck an inner wheel, you might have to remove up to 9 outer wheels just to reach the damaged one. For the Tiger II, this was simplified. The wheels were just overlapped, not interwoven, and the rubber tires were completely dispensed with, replaced by 2 steel discs with a rubber separator. This was highly beneficial late in the war, when even synthetic rubber was in desperately short supply. The Tiger II utilized the upgraded Maybach HL230 engine, which increased the available horsepower to 700. However, because of the extra armor and the larger gun, the Tiger II was a staggering 11 tons heavier than its 57-ton predecessor, weighing in at a colossal 68 tons. This sheer bulk resulted in a top speed of 32 kilometers per hour, slower than the Sherman or the T-34, but still pretty impressive given its immense weight. But weight was a glaring issue. It put immense strain on the engine and transmission, pushing the entire system to its limits, which inevitably led to mechanical breakdowns. Because they were engineered to such fine tolerances, Tigers were incredibly difficult to maintain in the field. When things went wrong, parts and spares were often totally unavailable, leaving these badly needed assets unserviceable for protracted periods. Part of what added weight to the Tiger II was its massive fuel tanks. It had a better road range than the Tiger I, but the Tiger II was notoriously thirsty, gulping down 5 liters of fuel per kilometer on the road, compared to about 2 liters for a Sherman. This became a fatal flaw when German supply lines were stretched and fuel was cripplingly scarce. Between July 1942 and August 1944, just 1,354 Tiger Is were produced, and between January 1944 and March 1945, a mere 489 Tiger IIs rolled off the lines. There simply weren't that many of either. Yet, they've somehow left an outsized mark on our understanding of World War II history. It's quite easy to overestimate their importance, but let's take a closer look at the production numbers to add a little perspective. The production runs of both Tigers are microscopic compared to the 50,000-odd Shermans and the similar number of T-34s produced by the Allies. The Germans never intended to flood their tank forces with Tigers the way the Allies relied on mass-produced mediums. This was largely because producing a Tiger was staggeringly complex and labor-intensive. German industry lacked large-scale, automated production facilities and still relied heavily on hand assembly. To put the industrial burden in perspective, a Tiger I took around 300,000 hours to build and cost 250,000 Reichsmarks. A Tiger II took between 350,000 and 400,000 hours to build and cost over 321,000 Reichsmarks.
We're left observing that the shift from Tiger I to Tiger II was actually a pretty bold, or perhaps foolish, move, considering the changing fortunes of the war. On the other hand, an American Sherman took between 10,000 and 12,000 hours to build. A Soviet T-34 took between 3,000 and 5,000 hours. In the time it took to build a single Tiger I, you could build around 30 Shermans, or 100 T-34s. The Germans simply weren't playing the same game. While the Allies sought to pump out tanks that were good enough and were prepared to accept attrition, the Germans were looking for absolute, decisive battlefield supremacy. To them, this meant outgunning and outlasting the enemy to achieve massive kill ratios. It's a nice idea in principle, but perhaps not quite so sensible in a global war won by strength of numbers and logistical supply chains. The mass-produced Sherman attained a serviceability rate of 80 to 90%. The Tiger II hovered around 59%. There isn't much point in having the best kit available if it's completely unusable almost half the time. So, were they really worth the cost? Was the Tiger II a success? Well, as a direct replacement for the Tiger I, it can be regarded as a technical success. It offered increased firepower and armor protection that meant it remained dominant in a localized fight. No Allied tank commander would willingly engage a Tiger II from the front. In a simple head-to-head engagement, it really couldn't be bettered. But tank engagements aren't fought in a vacuum. The Tiger II was heavily constrained when operating in the rolling, enclosed countryside of northwest Europe, where it was highly vulnerable to flanking maneuvers, artillery, and air attacks. In fact, mines, mechanical failures, or simply running out of fuel is how the majority of Tiger IIs were lost. To get the most out of a machine this sophisticated, you needed an elite, highly experienced crew. By late 1944, these crews could not be replaced at the speed they were dying. The less a crew knew about their vehicle, the less likely they were to use it properly, let alone diagnose simple mechanical issues. Ultimately, the Tiger II was almost never used for its designated purpose as a heavy breakthrough tank. By the time it was ready, the German army was in absolutely no position to be smashing offensive holes in enemy lines. With a few exceptions, like the Battle of the Bulge, where they were ultimately crippled by fuel shortages, they ended up fighting desperate defensive actions against hideous odds. The Tiger II could be described as a tactical success for its immense physical strength and its ability to dominate a localized battlefield. At the exact same time, it was a profound strategic failure. It was resource-hungry, incredibly expensive, and far too few in number to have any major impact on the course of the war. Given their astronomical cost, it forces us to question whether the German war machine would have been better off dropping the heavy Tiger concept altogether, in favor of building more medium Panthers and assault guns. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below.